Karmelo Anthony, this man got denied his retrial, ladies and gentlemen, and I think they did him a service by denying him. Why? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if evidence would have came out that Carmelo Anthony was licking the blade off a knife like he was Blade himself, Wesley Snipes, I think that they would have thrown away the key. This man was giving out threats not only to his girlfriend, but he said that he was going to lick the blood. So the girlfriend, as she snitched to her school, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't think the schoolhouse took it serious. And he crashed out. Another man that can't control his emotions. Let's go with the content. Crazy work.
The gripes, for lack of a better term, that they put in their petition, they're constitutional. What does that mean? That means this whole thing at some point is going to end up in federal court. It'll take a while, but I think that that's going to be the end game. This will be ongoing. That is my prediction for a while, but I do think the conviction will hold up.
How damaging, in your view, were the messages from Carmelo Anthony's own phone regarding his temper?
Well, they certainly didn't help, and I think that it goes to this issue of him taking the stand because they didn't want that particular material to emerge. And even if you accept the idea that this gentleman's agreement was also done to protect the deceased, that they didn't want him dragged through the mud because he is the victim here undeniably, there's absolutely no comparison.
One thing for sure that we have to set the record straight that Carmelo Anthony is not the victim. And you know what's crazy work is that people are really supporting Carmelo Anthony, talking about justice for Carmelo Anthony. So we have to add this to context. You cannot bring a knife on school property. Absolutely not. We got to stop the cap.
Between maybe some social media posts that Metcalf had done and the fact that prior to stabbing,
How many bullets you want coming out of your chest, and I'm going to get you expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. There are also text messages where he admits on it.
Bro, that's insane. When he does what to somebody, he's going to do what? Nah, we got to stop the cap. We have to analyze this. And for the FBA members, for the ones that supporting Carmelo Anthony, not all skin folk is kinfolk. Just because Carmelo Anthony is a black man doesn't mean that you have to ride and die by the dude just because he's a black man. The dude is talking about he's gonna lick the blade like it's some type of ritual, bro. Like he's some type of Epstein files. Like, bruh, and y'all still standing behind him. And I believe the judge that denied the retrial did him a service by denying a retrial because when you do a retrial, you have to talk about everything. And if the jury was to know that this man is licking in the blade like he is Wesley Snipes, I think he would have gotten life.
Prosecutors say Anthony repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, how many bullets you want coming out of your chest, and I'm going to get you expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. There are also text messages where he admits on at least 2 occasions to
Bro, that's insane. What are you talking about licking the blood out the blade? What?
punching girls in the face. In a text conversation with a friend in
Now, Carmelo Anthony has some huge rage issues, but let's keep it a stack. Austin Metcalf also his secrets came into the masses saying that he was writing KKK, showing vandalism of him having hate crimes. Also, he got suspended from his basketball team for 12 months for saying racial slurs. And also, he was choking out his mom. So both parties got a questionable past. Nevertheless, that does not justify just because Austin Metcalf is quote unquote a racist, doesn't mean that he deserves to be deleted.
2023, prosecutors have messages from Anthony where he wrote, "I'ma shoot the school up tomorrow." In 2024, prosecutors say Anthony even attempted to assault a teacher.
Post coming from Fox News just moments ago, breaking: a judge denies motion for a new trial for Karmelo Anthony. And we also have this coming from Fox News, breaking it all down, as a Texas judge denied Karmelo Anthony a new trial on Saturday after his attorneys argued that courtroom restrictions, hearings held without Anthony present, and the handling of unwritten agreement between his former lawyers and prosecutors violated his rights. You can see this post on your screen coming from Fox News. Just in, Karmelo Anthony loses his bid for a new trial, keeping his murder conviction and 35-year prison sentence in place. A Texas judge rejects the 19-year-old's challenge after 2 days of testimony over courtroom restrictions, hearings held without Anthony present, and a disputed unwritten agreement between his former lawyers and prosecutors. Anthony was convicted in June of stabbing and killing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during an altercation at a Frisco track meet. His legal fight now moves forward on direct appeal. So to go more in depth on this, retired district judge Michael Chitty denied Anthony's request after reviewing that motion, court record, evidence and arguments, briefs, and relevant case law that was according to his order. Now, the order did not detail his reasoning for that decision, but that decision leaves Anthony's murder conviction and 35-year prison sentence in place. His challenge will continue on direct appeal. Chitty heard 2 days of testimony in McKinney, Texas, after the judge was removed from, the former judge was removed who presided over Anthony's murder trial, Judge John Roach, from the remaining trial court proceedings earlier this week. That judge had found that a reasonable outside observer could question whether Roach appeared impartial after he had publicly said that the jury got it right and defended several of his trial decisions. Now, at the center of the new trial hearing was an oral agreement between Anthony's original defense attorneys and prosecutors to keep potentially damaging character evidence involving both sides from reaching the jury. Former lead defense attorney Mike Howard had testified that he understood the agreement to allow Anthony to testify if he stayed focused on the confrontation under the tent at the Frisco track meet. On the final day of the trial, which was yesterday, prosecutors told the defense that the agreement would not apply if Anthony took to the stand and that the defense had opened the door to character evidence. Howard had said that dispute led to a heated break in the proceedings and made Anthony unwilling to testify. So once again, that latest breaking news coming in today is that Karmelo Anthony has lost his bid for a new trial. That was the big news in this case that we were still waiting to hear.
It's going to take something pretty outlandish, something that would be a severe constitutional rights violation for the defendants.
Chitty did not provide details in his order rejecting the motion for a new trial. A major part of the hearing was centered on what both sides called a gentleman's agreement. Prosecutors and Anthony's original defense team had agreed to keep.
And I believe that's what's best for both parties. Because if Karmelo Anthony was to go to a retrial, ladies and gentlemen, all those text messages are not going to arise and going to be spoken into the courtroom, talking about he's licking the blood off the blade, like he's Wesley Snipes. Also, they want to protect the image of Austin Metcalf, of all his racial things that he did in his past. They don't want the skeletons to come out the closet. So 35 years for Karmelo Anthony. When you do the crime, you have to do the time. Self-defense, I call cap. How is it self-defense at a track meet? Second of all, you're not supposed to have a weapon on school property. The most that you can have is your cell phone, if that. I mean, times have changed since I've been to school, but having a T99 calculator was questionable. These people are bringing out a 3.5 pocket knife. Then they want to talk about self-defense. Well, yeah, you can have self-defense when you're out in the public, but on school property, you are endangerment to yourself and others around you. And why would parents feel comfortable knowing that the next student has a pocket knife on their personnel? If that's the case, there needs to be another discussion being held. Teacher parent conference, there needs to be a one-on-one, or maybe that certain student needs to be sent to another school away from that environment if there needs to be a pocket knife involved. We got to stop the cap. But they want to talk about self-defense. So y'all brought pocket knives to school? Stop the cap. Mom Dukes gave me $20. I spent the whole 20 at lunch. My teacher snitched and called my mom and said, yo, HC spent the whole $20 bill at lunch today. Did you give him $20? That's how much eyes was on my ass when I was in grade school. The money my mom gave me for allowance, I spent that whole 20. I was living lavish. And my teacher's like, oh, nah, red flag. But people can bring a pocket knife to grade school to come on now, stop it. Then he wants to cry and proceed to talking about I told him not to put his hands on me. So you knew fully capable of what you was doing. That is called premeditated. Then they want to cause us a race war. And that's what they're really trying to do. They're trying to make this a black versus white thing. No, this is about a human life being gone. Regardless of if the man was racist, because absolutely he was racist. We're not denying that Austin Metcalf 100% was racist. Does that mean that he deserves to be deleted? Who are you to say the next man should be deleted? That's some crazy work. People glorifying the next man's death is crazy work. He could say all he wants to say. That's his First Amendment right. If he wants to be racist, that's his business. But to encourage death is some nasty work. So for the trial to be denied, I think that's going to work in the favor of Karmelo Anthony, because if that was to go into the surface of a retrial of him talking about he's licking the blood off a knife, oh man, he's cooked. He may get double, maybe life in TDC, Texas Directional Center. He may be cooked. And you know, those boys now, they found out that he is threatening his ex-girlfriend, at the time was his girlfriend, talking about, if you don't take me back, I'm gonna delete somebody. Do you know how many people in TDC, Texas Directional Center, is gonna get news of that and do something? Because at first it's one thing that he took out a white boy. Now he's threatening a woman? He's gonna threaten a woman, and the news gonna spread in jail like wildfire. And what, he weighs a buck, what, 130, 140 at most? Sheesh. You might as well play the saxophone musics now.
Certain character evidence about both Anthony and Metcalf out of the trial. The dispute came when the defense prepared to put Anthony on the witness stand. Anthony backed out, and his new legal team says that was because of real concern the state would grill him on his behavioral history.
Oh, 100% Texas don't play down south in Texas. Boy, do you know where you at, boy? You was threatening woman, boy. Yo, that 35-year sentence don't look too bad, don't it? And there's a reason why he didn't go on and stand. Yo, if he was to go on and stand, all of these secrets would unravel in the courtroom, and they would have given more than 35 years. They did the okey doke in the judicial system. They didn't want to talk about, oh, he didn't have no black jurors. Yo, they did this young lad a favor. First of all, he wasn't apologetic. He should have came correct and be like, yo, Jeff Metcalf, I got caught up in my emotions. I was just trying to, defend myself, and it is what it is. I took your own. I can't bring your son back, but I'm super apologetic. They're trying to throw my life away. They're trying to give me life in jail. If you can please accept my apology. After I get out of jail, we can, have some type of program to tell young men to control their emotions so they don't end up like me. He didn't come correct at all. No apologetic, no sympathy. The courtroom was like, yo, do you understand you took away somebody's life? And what's crazy work, ladies and gentlemen, is that people are taking away the life of Austin Metcalf because he had questionable ways in the past of committing vandalism, of writing KKK on buildings and choking out his mom, which is some crazy work. I mean, that is some crazy work. But at the end of the day, it's still alive. And we know how boys are, not condoning his actions, but boys gonna be boys. At least he could have had the opportunity to grow out of that racism and then potentially be an example, be a testimony to future racists. Be like, yo, I was there at one point, and I want to show you race is not the way. I got in trouble in high school, this, that, and the third. Don't follow my footsteps. At least give Austin Metcalf the opportunity to be alive, because people get caught up in school in trouble to where they're suspended, they're expelled. They got to take a whole school year missing, their friends graduating, they had to fall behind, but at least they had an opportunity to be alive, to live life. Austin Metcalf doesn't have the opportunity because somebody wants to carry a knife that so-called people want to first call the knife that the weapon of choice. They were trying to lie and say it was a cleat sharpener. Can y'all believe that? Talking about it was a cleat sharpener. First, what is a cleat sharpener? I ran track. I never used no damn cleat sharpener. I understand that it sharpens your cleat, but y'all gotta stop the cap set. And then they try to push a narrative that he was carrying a weapon of choice because he attended a class called shop where you weld and build things in class, and he was going from class to class. That's why he had the weapon of. No, we gotta stop the cap, man. All the excuses in the book. Crazy work. So when I'm trying to understand, just because somebody shares the same skin color as you, we just gotta ride and go by what they say like it's law? Because we do understand not all skin folk is kinfolk. We do understand that though, right? The same people that voted for a certain person just because of his skin color? No research, no nothing.
That gentleman's agreement. Scott says one of the problems for the defense is that the agreement was made behind closed doors.
And unfortunately, when you look at to see whether, from appellate purpose, whether to see if someone has actually violated the accused's constitutional rights, you have to see what's on the records. And this gentleman's agreement was done in a formal behind closed doors, and so nothing was ever brought out during the trial itself regarding this gentleman's agreement.
The defense also argues that restrictions on public access to the original trial violated Anthony's rights. Trial Judge John Roach was recused at the start of this week's hearing. Scott believes the issue of courtroom access could still matter as the case moves forward on appeal.
An accused has a right for his trial to be conducted both fair and objectively, but also to have open access to by the public. A trial should always be open to the public. In this situation, I believe that Judge Roach restricted much access to his courtroom in this trial, and that could play a big part in the Court of Appeals.
He also explained that the denial of a new trial doesn't end Anthony's legal options. Scott expects the case to proceed through the 5th District Court of Appeals in Dallas.
But they have one course now to pursue this, and that is to go ahead and actually appeal both the jury verdict and the judge.
I do not think Karmelo should appeal anything. I think he should be very happy that he only got 35 years because he's down south in Texas. They don't play down south in Texas. Now there's text messages revealing that he was threatening his girlfriend, talking about he's going to lick the blood and he's ready to kill somebody. Bro, if those texts was released and the jury was reading that stuff, he's cooked. Not only is he threatening, not only did he delete somebody, but prior to him deleting somebody, he was threatening his girlfriend. Bro, the court is going to cook his ass if he gets a retrial. 35 years doesn't look too bad. They trying to give him life. That's lethal injection. Texas? Yo, he should get on his knees every day and thank the Most High that he only got 35 years. Down south in Texas, they would delete him in a heartbeat. You do the crime, you do the time. Talking about self-defense, we got to stop that narrative. You don't have no self-defense bringing a weapon on school property. What school did y'all go to talking about self-defense? Stop the cap.
Just denial of a motion for new trial, and they're going to take it to one place that's going to be favorable, and this venue's in Dallas, Texas.
I'm hoping this was not a setup from the beginning, them recusing the judge just to deny the request of a new trial. Because anybody that's unbiased with common sense ears and eyes know that Karmelo was railroaded. Not just by the district attorney and the judge, but by his own damn defense attorneys. This trial was not fair. And in the United States, the criminal justice system should be fair, no matter the color, no matter the person. But we all know that it's not. We have several recent cases to show that it's not. If the judge today denies the request for a new trial, it's going to sting.
Karmelo Anthony is not getting a new trial. And after what came out in the court last week, I have questions. We learned there was a private off-the-record agreement to keep the troubled youth's backgrounds, both teenagers, away from the jury. Austin Metcalf had allegations involving racial slurs, bullying, and assault. Carmelo had allegations.
So we have to talk about that. So they're bringing up Mr. Austin Metcalf's past, but this was nothing. See, that's why when you hear stuff, you got to do research and actually see what people are talking about and see if it's cap or not. So when they're referring to Mr. Austin Metcalf being racist, this and the third, this was nothing to do with what happened at the moment when he got deleted. Because yes, he's a racist. Yeah, he was choking out his mom, which is some crazy work. Yeah, he had some vandalism by writing KKK, but that is prior to the situation at hand. So is he a bully? Is he a racist? 100%. Austin Metcalf is for racist. Does that mean the racist deserves to be deleted? So in that confrontation underneath that tent, ladies and gentlemen, with some slurs being said, 100%. So words justify the man being deleted because he told Mr. Karmelo Anthony to move around 15 times. So Mr. Karmelo Anthony had plenty of time to move around and he's suffering from epilepsy. If you're suffering from epilepsy, you don't want to be touched. Why are you provoking and entertaining a bully that's racist? Does that make any sense? So you want to argue with somebody that's a racist, then you have no business being there. That's not even the school that he was supposed to be at. Then you have the Carmelo Anthony defenders saying, well, how come color folks can sit where they want to be? Of course, when you were in high school, you attended the other high school events, track meets, this, that, and third, 100. Of course. But if you know the ops is going to be there, why would you provoke the ops?
Involving threatening texts, stalking, and assault. None of that came in. And Carmelo's former lawyer says that they had planned to put him on the stand, but all of this helped change that decision. So now the defense says the first trial was too controlled, too secretive, and unfair. The judge said no. 35 years still stands.
Service Sam here with a Karmelo Anthony update, and we have some sad news, actually. Judge Chitty Shitty Bang Bang has denied Karmelo Anthony's request for a new trial. This is a bit shocking to me. I figured he would take until Monday to come back. They had just recused Judge Roach, but he's denying a new trial. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. Why would they have all this come out? I don't believe it's been even with what we saw from the Metcalf twins and what we saw with Karmelo Anthony's background. I think, if anything, it made it extremely clear that he deserved a new trial and that the gentleman's handshake was not fair to him at all. So as for now, the 35-year sentence does stand. What do you guys think about this?
I think it's a blessing that he got 35 years, especially down south in Texas where they don't play. And then also you have texts revealing that he was threatening his girlfriend prior to him deleting Mr. Austin Metcalf. So regardless if Mr. Austin Metcalf is racist and he was the initiator in provoking Mr. Karmelo Anthony, that doesn't mean that you can have a knife on the school property. You can't have no weapon on your personnel when the same place where you're supposed to learn and get an education, you have a knife? Remove the knife from the situation, we wouldn't even know Karmelo Anthony exists.
The comments, I will keep you updated as it keeps coming in, but I'm just honestly in shock. I really believe that he would get a new trial in light of this information that we have seen now. We're not giving up. We're still saying that he deserves a fair trial.
And the other kids were white. But once you got into the facts, it seemed to be a pretty straight line analysis of a kid who decided to stab someone that he was in a disagreement with to death. The person he was disagreeing with was Austin Metcalf. And you'll remember the jury didn't have a single black person on it, and that was an issue, but the judge had dealt with it and said this case has nothing to do with race, so why would the race complexity of the
we have to talk about why there was no black juries. So they actually interviewed black juries and they said they don't have the heart to convict one of their own. So once again, when you hear stories talking about, oh, there wasn't no black juries, actually research and understand why there wasn't. And once again, they interviewed black juries and they said they don't want to convict one of their own. Another lie that's debunked.
Our jury matter, and that is true under the law. That is true under the law. You'd have to find that you were intentionally keeping people of a certain race off for a certain reason, and that didn't seem to be here. Now, though, that judge is gone. Not because of that per se, but because of his extrajudicial comments, which is where he gave an interview after the case, and he was asked if he thought the jury got it right, and he said, yes, whatever they come up with, they got it right, and that hurt their client. And so there's a new judge who's weighing whether or not to grant Anthony another trial. And something came out today that is very, very unusual. An agreement between Karmelo's lawyer and the prosecutors to not put information about both boys' backgrounds into the trial. This is very weird because there's now a bunch of alleged information about Austin Metcalf in the air that is very ugly stuff. Imagine if this is your kid, he's gone, and now it's kind of like he's being put on trial. I wanted to talk to his father about it, and Jeff Metcalf agreed and joined to come on to discuss it. Jeff, thank you for taking the time and the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here with you tonight.
So, you know everything I know and more. What do you make of the developments that we saw today?
I mean, it's another procedural trial hearing, just like yesterday for the judge. Today is for, talk about the retrial, if they're going to grant that or not. Yeah, information did come out. I'll be honest, as a father, I was disappointed, very disappointed in seeing those things. But at the end of the day, it's really about the facts of the case, because I have to relive this all over again. No matter what the outcome of this is, my son's never coming home. So
I understand, and I think you've been incredibly strong in how you have stood up and what you've talked about and what you've said. And when you say it was disappointing, are you disappointed in what you heard, or are you disappointed that you heard it at all and that it's part of this situation?
Just disappointed as a father. I mean, we all want our children to be, the best they can be, and obviously we all fall short. But, to see that information that I had never actually seen before.
No, you could have been a better father. Your son was out of control. He was choking out your wife, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. With that being said, as racist as Mr. Austin Metcalf was, he doesn't deserve to be deleted by a pocket knife on school property. But nah, man, choking your mom, like, that's crazy. Like, choking your mom out. Then he was writing racial slurs, KKK. Like, that's some crazy. It's one thing to think about the thought, the intrusive thought, but to commit the action, nasty work. So as a father, once again, you saw the signs of your son going into a dead end, and you have to say, unfortunately, that you have parts of him not being there, because why was he so hateful?
But I knew at some of the incidents, we had dealt with it at home. But I'm just saying, I'm just very disappointed in what I saw from my sons. And it still doesn't change the facts of the case. And that's what, and this foundation, because I'll be honest, when I left today, I was very angry when I left court. Well, one of the things I'm teaching with this foundation is impulse control,
And that's good. And, unfortunately, Austin Metcalf can't be alive to learn from his mistakes of having a bad attitude, and telling the youth, to control your emotions, breathe, it's going to be okay, and learn from my mistakes. Karmelo Anthony, after he serves that 35-year sentence, he can come out of jail and be an example to the youth. And, he's going to be okay. People are going to want to know. I believe Tyler Perry is going to also get involved with this situation and make a movie out of this. This would be a great movie. So it's not the end for Karmelo Anthony, but that same statement, ladies and gentlemen, it is the end for Austin Metcalf. Regardless of how you feel about the man, how he's racist, he's still alive. He was an entity walking this earth. Who are we to say that the man deserves to be deleted because of his mindset? Because the next man doesn't have to owe you explanation. The next man doesn't have to agree with you. The next man can hate you. But in the same time, that doesn't mean the next man deserves to pass away, especially on school property. Because let's keep it a stack. How many times have you seen, or have you been involved into a school fight, a feud, to where you personally got into a fight and you got your peoples involved, and you had to go to parent-teacher conferences, you had to go to the courtroom paying lawyer fees, getting stuff expunged, this, that, and the third. But what happened at the end of the day? You still survive. You got to live and learn and tell your adolescents, tell others not to do the same thing that you grew. Austin Metcalf doesn't have that same choice. He made one bad choice of putting his hands on Karmelo Anthony, and that's it. Also, what I take from this as well is that keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to yourself, and you can make it back home because you don't know what the next time. If you just glance at Carmelo Anthony, could you imagine that he would do something like pulling out a knife on school property? No. So you got to mind your business and don't put your hands on the next person.
And de-escalation and to regulate your emotions. Well, it took me 15 minutes today driving home to get my emotions in check. I can understand how people can make a split-second decision and it can be the wrong one. And it can put someone in a grave or someone in a cell. And that's why this foundation is why I started it, the Austin Metcalf Foundation. So we don't have situations like this. So people don't feel like I feel today. Because I'm telling you as a parent, you don't ever want to feel this pain. And nor would I wish this.
My brothers, his first thing in kindergarten and the parents teach you is to keep your hands to yourself 100%. And unfortunately, Austin Metcalf, he effed around and found out, and he learned the hard way that lesson to keep your hands to yourself. There's no reason at all you should put your hands on nobody unless you're willing to pass away, because that's what happens. If you put your hands on somebody, there is no rules to it. But see, this was taken out of context. This wasn't a street fight. This wasn't in the back alley of New York City where there was no cameras or no witnesses. This was at school property.
Upon my worst enemy. And to sit there and watch my son be dragged through the mud again today, the same stuff that was said for 14 months, if you want to try to assassinate character, do what you think is right. But at the end of the day, the facts are very simple. He stabbed an unarmed child to death, and that's it. End of story. You can make up whatever color, whatever happened 4, 5, 6 years ago had nothing to do with what happened that day underneath that tent.
Jeff, what do you think of the prospect of a new trial?
To be honest, I'll say the same thing as I said yesterday. It's 50-50. It's either going to be granted or denied. I'm fine with either one. So I don't put a whole lot of thought process into that. I'm really putting a lot of thought process because this whole week has kind of put me on hold and not being able to work with my foundation. My foundation is my purpose, my mission. This is what's going to save lives. This is what's going to keep this from happening again. I just want to touch other people's lives and change the world one person at a time. If I can save one life, I'm a success. But if I can't, I'm a failure.
Listen, I think that the judgment is in the effort, brother, not in the outcomes. If you're trying to help people and you're trying to help them de-escalate and in the ways that you say that the AMF is going to be about, the effort is the standard. Not the outcomes. All you can do is try to make a difference, and you're clearly doing that. Here's something I wanted to ask you, get your take on this. Look, the information about your son, true or untrue, I get why you don't need to hear it in this setting and you don't want to hear it as a parent. I get you. I'm one as well. But the stuff about Karmelo Anthony and what he said to his girlfriend about wanting to stab somebody and the imagery, the fact that they made a deal to not have that come in, rarely is the victim's character relevant. But the defendant's character is always relevant. And I just thought that was a bizarre deal to make. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I wasn't privy. I didn't know it went down. I thought he was going to testify. Right. And so after the trial, it was explained to me, because I was expecting more information to come out. And they said, well, both sides agreed not to bring character into it, which to me, it made sense. Because really what we're looking at is what happened that day underneath the tent. What they did 4 or 5 years ago, I don't think it has relevance as far as what's happening today. Because I'll ask everybody out there, I'm 61 now. I am not the same person when I was 18 or 19. I don't know anyone who doesn't grow and learn and create mistakes. Of course. Mistakes are always made, but we try to minimize the damage. Because I told my sons this, you're free to make any choice you want in life, but you're not free from the consequences.
Yep.
Now,
Amen.
I forgave
you are right.
Carmelo. Now, I didn't forgive him for him. I gave him for me, so I'll have peace. So I'll have, so Understood. I can go on and move forward. This is not going to keep me prisoner. So, whatever came out about him, I'm not trying to draw conclusions. I don't have all the facts, all the stuff they have on him. I do know it was a 75-page document.
Yeah.
And what I saw today was disturbing. I'm not going to.
Extremely disturbing. They said that Carmelo Anthony was going to lick the blood after he deleted somebody, and he was sending these texts to his girlfriend that his girlfriend got freaked out. She had to snitch to the schoolhouse talking about, yo, my boyfriend He's doing the most, and they didn't take her threat serious. And unfortunately, if they did take her threat serious, I think they would have separated the boys, at least draw some attention. And also, Carmelo Anthony, there's no excuse, bro, because if he was really feeling some type of way, you should have used your God-given fist and swung. But you wanted to use a knife. That's no justification. How you pulling out a knife because somebody's racist? On school property? That's some nasty work. And what I don't like is that people comparing Carmelo Anthony to the Nolan Wells case. These are two different cases. We don't know what happened to Nolan Wells. It's still a mystery. After the 4th of July, 2 days later, his body was found, even though they was talking about he was on the island. But how can he be on the island, but y'all can't find the body? That doesn't even make sense. But just because somebody is a minority doesn't mean that we should just automatically assume that they're the victim. We got to take this case by case basis. And to address Mr. Carmelo Anthony, I'm sorry, my guy, just because you're a minority doesn't mean that I have to agree. If you're not all skin folk is kin folk, we got to call it spade a spade. Why did you have a knife on your personnel? Obviously, you was terrified of this racist. And after the news unraveled and revealed that Mr. Austin Metcalf is a super racist by writing KKK and vandalism and choking out his mom and doing some crazy work, we know officially that he was on demon time. So he was scared for his life, and he was like, you know what? It's not going to be me. But there should have been a different discussion being held. He should have had, a parent-teacher conference. There should have been a sit-down where the boys actually talked about what happened. And if they couldn't come to agreement to where there was a peace treaty, then there should have been some serious questions on like, yo, can these boys coexist at this high school? Obviously, they didn't. Yo, this man, Carmelo Anthony, wasn't even supposed to be there. He was provoking the situation. Then you know what I'm saying that they're saying on other podcasts like, yo, how come blacks can go wherever they want to? That's not the situation. You have to add context. If you know somebody is so racist and he's the ops, why would you entertain that? You're just throwing yourself into the situation. But you want to cry, you want to beg, but you didn't beg or cry to Mr. Jeff Metcalf, because that's who you should have been crying and begging to. If he would have showed even if he didn't mean it, but my goodness, your life is on the line, my guy. Nobody's going to fight for your life but you. But you want to be cool, calm, and collective. Okay, be cool, calm, and collective in jail for 35 years. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't wish ill will upon the next person because, nobody's perfect. But when these inmates find out that Mr. Carmelo Anthony was threatening women because he was threatening his girlfriend prior to him deleting Mr. Austin Metcalf, it's one thing to delete the next person on school property, especially a white person. That's some crazy work. But to give threats to the opposite sex, bro, he's cooked in jail. Then you want to put on top, he's in TDC, Texas Directional Center, federal prison down south in Texas, weighing a buck 120 pounds, a buck 30.
Anthony repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, "How many bullets you want coming out of your chest?" and "I'm going to get you," expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, "When I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade."
So how do you defend somebody like that? Like, he was obviously emotional. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he was pretty much blackmailing his girlfriend, saying, "Take me back," by saying outrageous texts. Now, we've been very emotional before in our past. Some have, threatened their lives, saying, if you don't take me back, this is what's going to happen. But he took it to a whole nother level. This man turned to an NPC demon, a Timu Wesley Snipes blade, talking about he's gonna lick the blood off the blade if you don't take me back. What?
Prosecutors say Anthony repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, "How many bullets you want coming out of your chest?" and "I'm going to get you," expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, "When I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade."
Ladies and gentlemen, if that was to be released in a grand jury, if this was to happen in a retrial, and they talking about Mr. Carmelo Anthony was trying to lick the blood off the blade, and it's one thing to say he say she say, but he sent text messages. This is evidence. So now you got the jury reading text messages. They're sliding the evidence, talking about I'm gonna lick the blood off the blade. That's going to double his sentence, if not triple his sentence, in the down south in Texas. And then this is a threat towards his girlfriend. So on top of him deleting Mr. Austin Metcalf, which he should have never had as a knife in the first place on school property, now you threatening a woman. They would have made an example out of this boy. So I think that 35 years is a deal. Y'all let me know in the comment section. Do you think Karmelo Anthony should have a retrial, regardless of all the evidence that has been released? Or do you think he got a deal by the 35 years that they was actually trying to give him life?
Prosecutors say Anthony repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, "How many bullets you want coming out of your chest?" and "I'm going to get you," expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another.
Bro, lick the blade like a Muchimaru. If you don't know who that character is, that's a villain off of Naruto. Bruh. Hold on, bro. We gotta do the screen share for that, bro. I'm gonna have to break the whole stream just to do a stream. Hold on. Muchimaru. This is crazy work. This man turned to a whole villain. All right, we got the share screen, man. Shout out to everyone in the building. Do me a favor and vote in the polls and let me know your take if Karmelo Anthony is innocent or not. Bro, this is Karmelo Anthony, bro. Hold on, can I make this bigger? Hold on, bro. Bro. This man talking about he's gonna lick the blade off the killer? Stop the cap. Let's go to those texts.
Stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. There are also text messages where he
And I said the name Vicky, and she tried to start hitting me, and I was running till she pulled my hair, and she started hitting me, so I punched her in her face.
admits on at least 2 occasions to punching girls in the face. In a text conversation with a friend in 2023, prosecutors have messages from Anthony where he wrote, "I'ma shoot the school up tomorrow."
Oh my goodness. Hold on. Violation flag on the play. Whoa. So not only did he threaten his girlfriend, he also threatened the school? But justice for Carmelo Anthony though, right? Why is there so much sympathy for Carmelo Anthony? That's what I'm trying to understand. He was sending texts talking about he's gonna I can't even say that on social media. Bruh. He's gonna do what? Hold on, one more time. We gotta run that back.
Repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, "How many bullets you want coming out of your chest?" and "I'm going to get you," expletive. He also threatened her with a knife in one message and told her in another, "When I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade." There are also text messages where he admits on at least 2 occasions to punching girls in the face.
Oh yeah, he's cooked. Yep. In jail, when the news goes around that he was trying to punch girls in the face, they're gonna be like, "Yo, you trying to punch who? Punch me." That same energy that you trying to punch women on, show me that energy. They're gonna have fun in Mr. Carmelo Anthony and TDC. Why did they release those messages? Oh man, he's cooked. Once again, it's one thing for him to delete a white person, which is crazy work. If that's already not going to have him terrified behind bars, now he's attacking women and it's text. You can't deny that. You can't say it wasn't you. They have text messages circulating around the web of you sending women talking about you're going to punch them in the face. So yeah, the 35 years that he got is a deal, especially if there's new evidence that got released. Your parents got over $1 million in GoFundMe's. They bought cars. They bought what they needed to buy. So at least your people's good. But you know, if you do the time, you gotta do. Excuse me. If you do the crime, you gotta do the time. If you would have just punched a dude and he lost his eye, you know, some freak accident, whatever injury that Austin Metcalf would have suffered by an altercation of using your fists, at least 9 times out of 10, Mr. Austin Metcalf would still be alive, and you wouldn't be serving no 35 years in jail. You probably would have got suspended. Probably have to skip a grade, go to an alternative school, take some, therapy and to control your emotions. But it wouldn't be as severe to this magnitude as it is present day. And he's trying to get a retrial. I don't think that's a good idea. You try and threat a woman, that's some nasty work.
Man, I just realized that in this country, it ain't about right and wrong. It's not about right and wrong. I'm talking about in terms of the way that they serve justice, or so-called justice. It's not about right or wrong. It's about doing what they want to do. It's about getting the outcome that they want. It does not matter who gets hurt. It does not matter. And even in regards to this Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case, where you got a black kid stabbed to death, a white kid. The white people who are up in arms about this, they don't really care about Austin Metcalf. They're using Austin Metcalf as a pawn to further their hatred for blacks. They do not care about Austin Metcalf, and I'll prove it right now. If Karmelo Anthony was white, we would have never heard about this case. All of these white people losing their minds and calling Karmelo everything but a child of God, hunting their.
That's very decent. That's very inhumane for Willie D to say. But he is pandering to only black folks. But the way that I see it, when we bleed, we all shed red. Now, to act ignorant as if there isn't racism in America, that is very stupid to say. 100% there is, but is it compared to how it used to be like in Jim Crow laws? No. I don't have to ask Massa for permission to go outside. Massa doesn't pay my bills. I can, for the free will, all I got to do is work hard and enjoy the fruits of my labor. It is not 1924 anymore where I can only drink water from only blacks.
Family down, doxing their parents, being disrespectful to his mother and father. They wouldn't be doing none of that. This is strictly a situation where they're using Austin Metcalf's death to further their hatred against black folks. This 35-year sentence for killing somebody who approached you, who attacked you, who hit you, put his hands on you first. Even if Karmelo Anthony went too far, even if somebody would say, well, he shouldn't have done that much. He should have, he has a right to defend himself, but he has to match force with force. Enough.
Yes, they ain't nothing but a bunch of freaking racists. And now they want to act surprised that a judge denied a retrial. He killed somebody in cold blood. What don't y'all understand about that? Y'all think it's okay that he killed somebody because the boy was white. Y'all believe because he killed a white boy, he should be free. Do you not know how racist that is? Somebody lost their freaking son, their brother, their grandson, their cousin. A young man was murdered in cold blood. And y'all want to be mad because a young black man went to jail for killing a white boy, and y'all claim and we think it's racist. No, he was not. Karmelo Anthony was not convicted for racism. He was convicted because his dumbass decided to bring a damn knife to school and stab somebody. Karmelo Anthony was convicted because he killed somebody in cold blood. Because he's a murderer. Ain't got shit to do with racism. Not a damn thing to do with the color of his skin. It got everything to do with him stabbing somebody who he shouldn't have stabbed in the first damn place. Now I'm sick of y'all acting a fool over this. And don't tell me I gotta stand with Karmelo because I'm black. I ain't standing with no damn convicted killer. Y'all got to be y'all got to be more serious than this. Don't make no sense at all. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all the hate. I am sick of all the division. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Austin was murdered. He should be here today, but he's not because of Karmelo Anthony. And so Karmelo Anthony should stay in prison as long as Austin is dead. And guess what? Austin gonna be dead forever. He can't come back. So Karmelo Anthony should be locked up forever. Point blank, period. End of discussion.
Once again, you do the crime, you do the time. I do think a first-time offender, that's very severe to get 35 years for your first time. But it is premeditation, it's past manslaughter. Also, he wasn't apologetic. So not only did he take away a life, regardless if the man was racist or not, but he wasn't apologetic. If he was sincere and be like, Mr. Jeff Metcalf, once again, I got caught up in my emotion. If I can go back in time, I would have ran. I was scared for my life because I suffered through epilepsy and I didn't want to get touched. If your son told me to move around and I didn't move around and I provoked the situation and now I got the next 35 years to think over what transpired, but they're trying to throw my life away. If you can show mercy, they would have gave him 10, 15 years, but he didn't come with that type of vibe.
Next conversation with a friend in 2023, prosecutors have messages from Anthony where he wrote, "I'm a shoot the school up tomorrow." In 2024, prosecutors say Anthony even attempted to assault a teacher.
Post coming from Fox News just moments ago, breaking: a judge denies motion for a new.
A little bit last night. So today was the Karmelo Anthony's defense team is asking for a new trial. So as you may remember, earlier this year, Karmelo Anthony was convicted and found guilty of fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf at a track meet up in Collin County, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A little bit ago, I had a chance to speak with one of the reporters from our sister station up in Dallas who was actually in the courtroom and kind of gave me some feedback on what actually happened. And one of the things I would definitely want everybody to remember, and we talked about this with Bayoji yesterday, and we're going to talk to him a little bit later here in the show as well, but there are no cameras allowed in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. So everything that we're getting, honestly, it's old school. You have people who have pads of paper who are writing down notes, making sure they get the facts out to the station, so on and so forth. But here's a chance to hear what Amelia said happened while she was watching the court case today. So Amelia from our sister station, Fox 4 up in Dallas. And joining us tonight on the Isaiah Factor Primetime Live is Amelia Jones from our sister station up in DFW. Amelia, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Matt. Good to talk with you.
Good talking with you too. So, all right, so you were in the courtroom today with everything with Karmelo Anthony. Kind of take me through what actually happened when you were in the courtroom and what happened today.
Yes. So I was in the courtroom from 3:05 till just before 6 p.m. when court recessed and let out for the day. So that was after the third break that they took. So I was not allowed to have any electronics. I was sitting in the overflow courtroom, which was full. And so no electronics in there, no recording devices. So if you see me looking over, it's because I'm looking at my handwritten notes here. So
absolutely.
It was Mike Howard who was on the stand for this entire time. And now Mike Howard was the defense attorney for Karmelo Anthony in his trial in June that took place in Collin County. So he was on the trial. And a lot of the last few hours was about what they're calling a gentleman's agreement. So what this was, and it was shared on the record that it was really unprecedented, is it was an agreement between the prosecution, Bill Werski and his second chair, and Mike Howard and Toby Shook. And it was basically that we agree not to, the phrase open the door was used quite a lot. So they were not going to open the door on a variety of things. Mainly that had to do with character instances, whether that's some discovery of past incidences and past discovery with Austin Metcalf and his twin brother Hunter Metcalf, or discovery of certain things in Karmelo Anthony's past. They were not going to open the door. They were going to keep the trial focused on what they said, quote, happened under the tent. So a lot of conversation around the agreement. Obviously, what Mike Howard considered and understood the agreement to be, than what Bill Werski and the prosecution, the state, understood the agreement to be. And writing down some notes, I think a big thing in this case was, will Karmelo Anthony testify? And we were kind of all waiting on pins and needles. Will he testify or not? And I distinctly remember when I was here for the trial on Monday, when the defense had finally taken over the case, there was a extremely long break, and we had no idea if, potentially a deal was being made. We had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. It was at the point in the trial where if the defendant's going to get on the stand, it was likely going to be that day and that time. Well, today we learned that what was going on behind the scenes was actually a really heated, tense argument between the prosecution and Mike Howard and Toby Shook. So according to what was said today, the prosecution did not think that, quote unquote, under the tent encompassed Karmelo Anthony's testimony. However, Mike Howard, who is a really seasoned criminal defense attorney, he's saying in any self-defense case, if you want success to make that case, you need the defendant to tell their side of the story. You need the jury to hear from them and what they witnessed and what they felt in that situation to really have a successful self-defense case. And Mike Howard said several times that anyone who's been, a trial attorney, especially if they've been a criminal defense attorney, knows that and would know that. And Mike Howard said he was shocked that Bill Werski and the prosecution did not think that Karmelo Anthony was going to testify. So it turned out to be a really heated yelling match.
It's a good thing Carmelo Anthony didn't testify, because we just found out that he was going to lick the blood off the blade, and he threatened his girl to take him back as blackmail. He threatened to punch his girlfriend, all type of craziness, and he threatened to punch his teacher, all type of weird stuff Carmelo Anthony was talking about through text. And if that evidence was released and the jury was reading text messages talking about he's threatening women, oh man, he would have got double, if not triple, his sentence. But what I'm mostly concerned about is that now the inmates in TDC, Texas Directional Center, when they find news that Carmelo Anthony is trying to punch women, what are they going to do to Mr. Carmelo Anthony behind bars? Right now, $120, $130.
Actually in the judge's chambers, and it ended up that both sides actually needed time to cool off. So they left that conversation saying, let's take 5 to 10 minutes to cool off here. And Bill Werski had told Mike Howard, hey, I actually think you, quote unquote, opened the door of this character in saying in your opening statements that Karmelo Anthony was on the chess team. Now, this is Monday. Opening statements were, obviously days ago, and the state's already rested their case. So the defense gets this case. They're at the point where trying to decide if their defendant's going to testify. And then in my feeling of it, he gets kind of this bomb dropped on him of, oh, you think I opened the door?
For Karmelo Anthony. And we also have this coming from Fox News, breaking it all down as a Texas judge denied Karmelo Anthony a new trial on Saturday after his attorneys argued that courtroom restrictions, hearings held without Anthony present, and the handling of unwritten agreement between his former lawyers and prosecutors violated his rights. You can see this post on your screen coming from Fox News. Justin, Karmelo Anthony loses his bid for a new trial, keeping his murder conviction and 35-year prison sentence in place. A Texas judge rejects the 19-year-old's challenge after 2 days of testimony over courtroom restrictions, hearings held without Anthony present, and a disputed unwritten agreement between his former lawyers and prosecutors. Anthony was convicted in June of stabbing and killing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during an altercation at a Frisco track meet.
You ain't gonna do shit. I'm dancing. 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 You ain't gonna do shit.
So this brother here is supporting Karmelo Anthony, and by him showing out, he got caught up and got arrested because they did research on this individual, and he has priors. So this goes to show, mind your business and stay in your own lane.
If evidence does come out that Karmelo was not in fact fighting for his life when he stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, do you think that the black community will accept that?
If evidence shows that he did not, no, we're going to stand by ours regardless. They stand by theirs.
Bro, you can't make this up, bro. What you mean you're going to stand by yours regardless because they stand by theirs? If the evidence comes out against Karmelo Anthony, are you going to stand by him? And she says yes. What?
We're going to stand by ours regardless. I'm a mother first. I'm a black mother. Let me put that on there. I'm an African-American mother. So I have to put away my color first and step into the motherhood. Nobody wants to see their child slain. So I do want to send prayers to Austin Metcalf, their family. But at the end of the day, I got to think like, okay, what did you do to him or whatever to cause this to happen, the reaction? We got to start taking accountability for our kids. Because then again, if my kid, that's why it's a catch-22, if my kid was Karmelo and I feel like his back was up against the wall, well, I'm going to tell you straight up, better mine than yours. Better mine than yours.
Better mine than yours. So let's add context to what she's talking about. This transpired at a track meet on school property. So what you mean better mine than yours? Yours was supposed to have a knife in the first place.
So either way it go, everybody loses. A black boy allegedly murdered, and I say allegedly, heavy on the allegedly murdered somebody. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, this is about race. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't give a damn.
Who wouldn't give a damn?
Let me say this. Let's say the community.
So like if Karmelo Anthony was the one stabbed and killed by Austin Metcalf,
they wouldn't give a damn.
I come out here every Thursday and we pray for people going to court because we know this is the final frontier of racism and it's legalized here.
It was announced yesterday that there's no black jurors that were chosen. What are your thoughts on that?
That's why we need God. That's why we need God, and that's why he's going to show who's in control.
And would you be open to giving us your personal insights into the Karmelo Anthony trial and what your thoughts are on it?
I just want justice done. We know nobody go to a track meet to murder anybody, okay? Come on. That's an accident, self-defense, that's what it was.
The lack of self-accountability is very disturbing. An accident is, two boys get into a disagreement, punches was thrown, and while there's punches being thrown, somebody busted their lip and now they got to go get stitches. That's an accident because, yeah, it's severe. Somebody got to get stitches, but at least that person is still alive.
I'm not saying the kid should get off free, but first-degree murder? Come on. Basically, he's facing the wrong charge for the crime that was committed.
Do you think Karmelo is innocent? Do you feel like it's been an unfair response to what happened to Karmelo Anthony?
I feel that the justice system always over-respond when it comes to us. So definitely, I mean, you look at the charge. It was self-defense. He was wrestling with two guys. I don't know what the parameters of it, but it was two people. So, you know, 2 against 1, that's self-defense.
I'm dancing, you ain't gonna do shit. 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 I'm dancing, you ain't gonna do shit.
I don't have an opinion. I don't have an opinion here.
Just like Karmelo was doing. I'm glad you just said that. That's what Karmelo was doing. Protecting his motherfucking.
All this for somebody that is guilty. All this for somebody that should have never had a knife in the first place.
Free Karmelo. You guys support Karmelo? Yes? Yes? We're just here with press just to record and talk to you guys and see what's going on. Okay. Okay. It's a free country. You're in public. You're in public. Okay. Okay. Well, you're in public. I'm just asking. Yeah.
Bitch, go!
Whoa.
Hey, move the camera, bro. They don't want to
It's free speech. It's free speech. Why are you throwing stuff at us? Yeah, why are you throwing stuff at us? What the hell is that? All right, well, they're throwing water bottles at us while we're recording. By the way, there's signs right here that says self-defense is not a crime. Karmelo Anthony should do no time. And there's also this sign right here says hands off. And this sign says we stand with you. I believe it's about Karmelo as well. And you'll see a picture right here of Karmelo Anthony. These are pictures probably from his Instagram. Self-defense is not a crime. So that's basically with the tensions being high here. You can see, I mean, we're not here to support anybody, but we're already having things thrown at us.
Say something days ago and you're telling me now. And so then Mike Howard is, you know, at this point of, okay, if I open the door, does that mean our agreement is done? Because this is, again, it's not written down. And that was discussed earlier because of just the public's interest in this case and just the firestorm that it created on social media. They wanted to make sure that nothing got leaked and that basically it was what they felt was the best chance to get a fair trial with a fair jury. And what word came up often was clean. They wanted to do it clean. And so come to find out that after Mike Howard is, you know, telling Karmelo Anthony this, it comes to the decision that Karmelo Anthony did not testify in his own defense. And then obviously we know he was convicted and he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. So it was really going back and forth here on, you know, how did he interpret that, Mike Howard versus then Bill Werski. And obviously Karmelo Anthony has a brand new defense team, right? So they were not there for the trial.
Well, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Jack. What do you make of the fact that the Judge Roach was recused because of inappropriate behavior? If he's recused for inappropriate behavior, for bringing in his implicit biases into the courtroom during that trial, why isn't the entire case being thrown out, the entire proceeding being thrown out? Because that would indicate that the case is tainted. I mean, the trial was tainted, right? I mean, if the judge is walking in already making his mind up that Karmelo is guilty, how can Karmelo possibly get a fair trial?
Well, number one, the jury came up with the verdict, not the judge. Let's start with that. And unless you can show some objective proof of implicit bias at the time the trial was taking place, then you're going to have a problem overturning the case because the judge was biased. Everybody's
But
biased.
but the
I mean,
judge
like you
gave
don't leave
the judge
your
gave the jury,
prejudices.
but the judge gave the jury instructions, right? The judge can
Yes,
sway
yes.
a jury's opinion by the instructions that he give them. If he
And
gives
that's
them
appealable.
instructions,
If the judge, if the,
no, what I'm just saying, if he gives them instructions saying, "Hey, lean,"
Mhm.
he could give them instructions to lean a certain way. If he does that, people are thinking, "Well, he's the judge. It's his courtroom. He knows the law. We're just here on his dime. We're here. He's telling us to do things like this. Well, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to break the law. So let me do what the judge says do."
Okay, so here's the thing, Willie. It's only so much a judge needs to say. He basically has what's called standard pattern jury charges, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case. The state of Texas, pretty much every state issues the standard pattern jury charge. You basically cut and paste the jury charge for, let's say, self-defense, reasonable doubt, aggravated, we'll say aggravated murder. We'll say, premeditated murder. It's all just cut and paste and put in there. So it's only so much divergence from that standard pattern jury charge he can do. In fact, typically 2 or 3 weeks before.
Yeah, you breaking up
before
Ernest.
2 or 3 weeks before the case is even tried, the different defendants. Yeah, I know. The defendant and the prosecutor will send in proposed jury charges. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, but
Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a lot.
Okay. So basically what it's saying is that, typically 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, both sides will submit jury instructions that they propose, and they'll argue about that in pretrial. So these jury charges were pre-approved. All the judge does is read them from about a 20-page list of jury charges. So I don't know how much more the judge is supposed to do. And in this particular case, I think it was the jury who they elected to have the jury decide sentencing. So all the judge did was sit there and call shots. What evidence comes in, what objections are sustained. He could have been
guilty. He did not need to use deadly force against that boy. He killed that boy in cold blood.
And how is somebody the victim but they're still alive?
Stop the cap. Look at the facts. Like, you was asked to leave the tent multiple times before they even did anything to you or touched you.
Karmelo Anthony was asked to leave 15 times, and he suffers from epilepsy.
Dispatch 443, everybody can slow down. I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Forward on direct appeal. So to go more in depth on this, retired district judge Michael Chitty denied Anthony's request after reviewing that motion, court record, evidence and arguments, briefs and relevant case law that was according to his order. Now, the order did not detail his reasoning for that decision, but that decision leaves Anthony's murder conviction and 35-year prison sentence in place. His challenge will continue on direct appeal. Chitty heard 2 days of testimony in McKinney, Texas, after the judge was removed the former judge was removed who presided over Anthony's murder trial, Judge John Roach, from the remaining trial court proceedings earlier this week. That judge had found that a reasonable outside observer could question whether Roach appeared impartial after he had publicly said that the jury got it right and defended several of his trial decisions. Now, at the center of the new trial hearing was an oral agreement between Anthony's original defense attorneys and prosecutors to keep potentially damaging character evidence involving both sides from reaching the jury. Former lead defense attorney Mike Howard had testified that he understood the agreement to allow Anthony to testify if he stayed focused on the confrontation under the tent at the
He did not need to use deadly force against that boy. He killed that boy in cold blood. Look at the facts. Like, you was asked to leave the tent multiple times before they even did anything to you or touched you. You should have left the tent. That was his first mistake right there. When you trying to prove self-defense by deadly force, you have to have taken every option to get out the situation. He had an option to get out the situation. He did not have to stay in the tent when he did that. 2, he had the nerve to say, touch me and see what happens. You see what I'm saying? Like, Karmelo knew he had a knife on him. You see what I'm saying? And boom, you argue, you getting into it with 3-4 boys. Like, you know they're gonna jump you. You know what I'm saying? So you egged him into fighting you, so you had a reason to stab him, and it didn't go his way. Like, it's levels to self-defense, and I feel like we need to start teaching people what real self-defense is when it's coming to using deadly force. Now, when Austin hit him, that was his right to hit him back because you hit me back. Like, we're fighting with our fists. Austin should never touch the boy, period, though. But he didn't have to kill him. Like, his life was not in danger. You at a track meet. Your life is not in danger at a track meet. You was in a tent that wasn't your school tent. Yeah, it's like they was trying to bully you type shit, but that's when you was supposed to walk away and go about your business. You didn't have to stab him. I don't think Karmelo should have got 35 years, though, either. I felt like maybe if he, maybe 15 or 20, because he young. Like, I don't think nobody under 21 should get 25 years plus or life in prison. I don't believe that at all. But Karmelo is not innocent, and he is not a victim, and this has nothing to do with race. Now, granted, when it is black people, I feel like we do be more harshly judged, and our punishment be worse against like a white person that probably did the same thing or similar. But Karmelo definitely do need to be in prison. He definitely killed.
A retrial for Karmelo Anthony is the worst thing to happen to this dude, because now they're going to expose everything. Y'all
Not the suspects, and they're currently treating the victim. Again, he's down the north end of the stadium. All right, any weapons on you like that? Go ahead. I'll look here.
How long? He put his hands up. I know I'm not.
4-4, copy, I'll be in route. Y'all back up a little bit. Come over here for me. Go over here. I'm gonna put your handcuffs for now, okay, bud? Dispatch 443. Everybody can slow down. I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Everyone else can slow down. Suspects detained in handcuffs.
Hold on. You can open up the channel, and medics are clear to come in. Have them come to the northeast entrance. That's gonna be a gate that's wide open there, and then you come to the victim from there. This is the alleged suspect. All right,
So he says this is the alleged suspect. Karmelo responds says, I am. It's not alleged. So you're supposed to stay silent and let your lawyer represent you. But Karmelo, he says, this is not alleged. I am the one that did it.
Right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand each of these rights I have explained to you?
in live from
Now all eyes turn to tomorrow when we could hear brand new facts and testimony.
Okay. We'll figure that in a minute. So nothing on your person at all? Nothing? No, sir. Mind if I reach in your pockets and stuff and all that? Nothing gonna stab me? No, sir. Okay.
I'm going to be out with this.
I'm gonna a little personal there, okay? Just to make sure. Okay. All right. The victim's going to be underneath that tent over there, so I'll get medics. Memorial tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me. He put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me.
Guys, all right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me.
underneath that tent over there, so I'll get medics. Memorial tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you do the crime, you do the time. Simple as that. 35 years down south in Texas is a blessing. Evidence coming out that he's licking a blade like he is Wesley Snipes. His time would have doubled, if not tripled. He probably would have got life. So at least he gets to see the light of day. Austin Metcalf, unfortunately, he doesn't. We got 300 votes in the building. 55% says no, and 45% says yes. Karmelo Anthony is innocent. Let me know your take in the post. Karmelo Anthony, I'm gonna land my plane with this. I think the 35 years, is hefty, but at least it's not life.